Hello, come and take a seat. We're about to start up. Come and have a seat. Bring your martini. We've got spares here as well, luckily. That are unallocated spare martinis. Come and take a seat. My name's Mikey. Let's find out who we've got around the table. This is Talkaoke. It's a free-form talk show, and the way this works is you can talk about really whatever you want to talk about. We've got some of you will be able to see the silhouetted figure of Rick, who is attempting to visualise the conversation as we go along. And we've got a few from last. Well, I'll let Rick finish then, and we'll go to that. But maybe it's better to not refer to those just yet, because we don't want to necessarily influence the conversation when you might want to talk about something completely different. But then, you know, if you hear about the previous conversation, you might feel compelled to put in your penny's worth about that. Anyway, I'm talking too much. It's not about me talking, it's about you talking. Talkaoke, talking to this microphone. It's that simple. Let's get some names. We'll start off over here. What's your name?
Rachel.
And?
Adrian.
And?
Pervin.
Nico.
Nico, yep.
Antoine.
Yeah. So the whole way this works is it's kind of up to come and sit down, bring your martini. We've got spares. The way this works, it's kind of up to you to decide what you want to talk about. So I don't know if you've got anything that you want to start off with. Any thoughts, comments, observations, ideas, suggestions? Pervin?
You want them to be serious?
No, it's more a question about whether you want them to be serious, because it's kind of up to you. My job is simply to pass the microphone around. If you want to be serious, be serious. If you want to be light and playful, be light and playful. It's up to you, rather than me.
Well, let's talk about augmented reality, because I'm quite interested in that.
What would you like to say or ask about augmented reality?
I'd like to see what its potential is, really, and I'm quite excited about it. I'd like to be able to have someone perform on the palm of my hand.
Yeah, to see the world on the palm of your hand.
And I want to be able to see little villages appear on my fingers, and then for them to walk up my arm and talk to me.
Okay. Does anyone else would like to see villages on their fingers? Antoine, you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I would love that.
Yeah, would you add anything to this kind of world that's growing out of your hand?
Actually, there's a demo going on. I don't know if you've tried it earlier. I tried all the stuff over there, and you're not far from that. You can have a ballerina dancing over your head and things like that. So getting there slowly. What is the technology that you're using now? I'm not using them. I've just seen the demo, but I'm not the one behind. Do you know what the technology is? No, I don't know.
Okay.
There's quite a good one. There's one called Erasma that does that. You just need a trigger picture, and it makes things like that. Dancers dance on your hand or on books or on tables.
Rachel, are you interested in this augmented reality?
I'm interested if it's actually saying something. I'm not so interested in just the technology. I'm interested if it's got something to say, because nothing's going to be as
what would you like it
your
to
puppets. Say? You know, that's going to be tell stories, communicate, share memories.
Yeah. This is going to be tricky with all these. Yeah.
It has to be. It has to be about. Still has to be about the material, the content in the end, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, so whatever the medium, the content in a way is more important.
Well, form and content are kind of sometimes intertwined, aren't they? And what you're trying to say and what you're trying to do. But I think the trouble sometimes with technology, or we get bowled over with, is the technology rather than still how you're trying to.
Yeah.
What you're trying to say.
Okay.
So sometimes it can be appear a bit facile, I think, particularly.
So it's more showing off this ability to conjure a ballerina than actually.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, a lot of, when people were using projection years ago, when we start using projection many years ago.
Yeah, back in the day.
Back in the day, you use slides, and you make slides up and you make your own little slides, and you do all those sorts of things, and it's a series of interrelated images put to music or whatever you're going to do. Well, that's easy, and ultimately. It's
so we shouldn't. We've got this idea of a new technology, but it's about the story
Can I say something about overhead projectors? You know overhead projectors?
Yes.
And what, you can create three-dimensional shadows.
Yeah.
You can make models, like you make a model and then you get a light that you move. And you move the light into the model and it creates a three-dimensional shadow, which is like virtual reality. But we had that technology like 30 years ago, whenever the overhead projector came out. And I remember for years looking at this stuff on the screen and thinking it's rubbish in comparison to what you can do with your own human hands. And I think we have to be very careful in this world that we don't forget the human touch and that kind of thing. And
It's like performance. We just watched Simon McBurney's performance. I don't know the name of it, but it's an incredible performance.
Yeah.
But it was theatre, what he was playing with sound and lighting and music, and it's performance. It was a piece of theatre. I mean, it had digital components to it, but essentially it was brilliantly performed. It was a very good story, using those digital components really well, and in that case, it was a sound.
Is the story at the heart of this then? Because that seems to be what both of you are saying.
It doesn't have to be a sort of narrative story. It can be a non-narrative story. It can be, it doesn't have to be a sort of, but it's necessarily a story, but it's what the content is, what you're trying to say with the stuff you're trying to say. That's essentially, I guess. But
okay, Nico, have you got a view on this? Because you're the only person who really hasn't had a go yet. But
I agree. I think people and content is most important.
Okay.
Because there's loads of other technologies that came out some years ago and they were supposed to be amazing, like 3D TVs and things like this. And it's all rubbish until the content is or trenches something. So virtual reality or augmented reality, either or both, they're supposed to do all these things and to enable all these things, but they've been around for a few years now, actually.
Yeah, since the overhead projector days.
Well, pretty much. Yeah. And until there is good content and it facilitates things and it makes life easier, it's not going to...
Is there different content that you need for augmented or virtual reality? Would it be different, or is it the same old thing, the same old stories, human... In the last session, I'm not giving away too much when... I felt there was a yearning for human content, and human...
I think it's going to go back to that. I think actually we will end up coming back to live performance. We will end up coming back to human performance, and you will just see augmented reality or digital art just augmenting
the
that
augmented
performance.
Human.
And it will simply be because the technology on its own is crap. You have to have that human element to it.
In you come. There's this person that's a little bit nervous. We need to give them a little bit. Come on, in you come. Come on, don't be shy. We're not having a difficult. Come on, it's gone. It's gone. He's not even listening. Yeah.
Because when they first started talking partly about augmented reality, the idea was, one of the ideas was that you'd walk down, say, Oxford Street, you hold your phone up, you're in Oxford Street, and you get these little things popping up telling you where the bars were, or stuff like that. And who the fuck's can do that? Do you know what I mean? Well, no, you're not going to do it, are you? I mean, I don't. Well, once, you might, once you'll go. Oh look, Costa Coffee is 100 yards down there, just past the other one. And it's a bit like the Google Glass, wasn't it? Really? I mean, that whole take a photo thing, sort of, I think, just freaked people out a bit too more. A bit like the 3D TVs, which never really worked, apart from the specific films they made to demonstrate 3D TVs. You went to the Sony shop and looked at the 3D TV demos. They were amazing. The giant shark swimming towards you at the TV. But no one's making the content to do it. Like no one's making 4K content. Why have a 4K camera when most people are watching on a 1080 TV? It's just that there are certain things I think.
So there's technology in a way is out there trying to create all these kind of solutions to problems that don't really exist.
We haven't caught up with it. The ideas are there to a certain extent. And I think what tends to happen is that the ideas aren't there to put onto those things to make the most of them. Technology companies have to reinvent technology, otherwise they'll go out of business. So it's their own interest to say you want a new TV. It was a tube, it was a flat screen, now it's a curved screen, now it's a thin screen. So they've got to keep on telling you, actually, no, the better way to watch it, it was flat, now we've been telling you it's slightly curved. So, which is it? So it's just a way of selling you more shit, essentially, isn't it?
Okay. So, I mean, where does this stand? Where you're getting excited about these villages springing up on your fingers. Is this just marketing hype just to sell a new technology?
I just think that it's quite sad what you've said in some ways. In that in that you see that something like augmented reality would just become like a technical effect, if you like, and that we would just go back to the idea of live performance, and then somehow it would, create the costumes and the set, and we'd be able to see a dancer like we saw, and that they would be wearing an incredible costume which couldn't be created without the thing. I think there has to be more to that. It must be able to add to the narrative in some way, and that we need to find a way of it enabling it to tell its own story, and to be able to mix that story with what we're doing in the arts and theatre.
Right.
And that's what's exciting. That's what I would be interested in, is how we can make it touch people. In the same way that I can touch you. And is that possible? I don't know. I don't know enough about the technology.
You want to see a little village on your hand, right? So you'll do it once, you'll be like, wow, this is really cool, and then what? Do you know what I mean? You're not going to do it twice or three times or every week. Or
if it was like Emmerdale or something like that, and the story kept on going, then maybe you would do it. That's the question. Oh, Antoine.
Well, I'm wondering if maybe the problem is that the technology is evolving because of the market. So that's why, like you were saying, they're trying to sell more things instead of being actually created for creation straight away. So I think maybe at a time, I'm thinking like early cinema, like Georges Méliès and people like that, actually invented stuff because they needed it to tell stories.
Right.
Nowadays, we're really behind marketing guys trying to push new technologies just to sell more stuff.
Is driving the content.
And creators are trying to catch up with that to make something out of it and tweak it to make it more interesting. But maybe it has to be the other way around.
All right. Well, I take it there's a whole bunch of artists, or at least creative people around the table. What I mean, if you are creating the technology to drive your work rather than the technology dragging us into these forms, what sort of technology would you create? What sort of things would you want to have happen that would progress your own work?
People like to see a live event more often.
Yeah?
Yeah.
People wanting more liveness.
Yeah, people just reaching people. That's what I want technology to do, is actually reach people so they come and see a live event.
So technology pushing people together in a physical space.
Yeah.
Okay. Can it do that?
Yeah, of course it can. Yeah. It's just how it's utilised.
Yeah.
Of course it can.
Okay. So
would it be social though? I walked in there, I was late, and I saw everyone sat on a chair with his headphones on. I was like, this is a weird world. Yeah, so you'll sit in a room with people with goggles on, and so they all be in the same.
Yeah.
But if it brings more people, like, there's lots of people watching live theater in a movie cinema because it's filmed, and that's really cool because it brings that to the masses.
He's going to lose his job, isn't he? Because he's going to be augmented.
Yeah, well, you say that, but,
so we don't need this man. We need us.
But I will have 100. I would have 100. I'd have 100 Talkaoke tables around the country. I'd just be sitting back counting the money.
You'll be a hologram man. What are you talking about?
I mean, maybe I am. Maybe I am. Well, Pervin knows because he's touched me. Yeah.
That was Max. That was Max Headroom about 30 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Max Headroom.
Yeah.
First,
yeah.
he was.
Whatever happened to Max Headroom?
He became. Didn't he become Red Dwarf? Isn't the same guy as Red Dwarf? It's what's the face? No, it's not.
Well, hang on a sec, we've got Rick's first visualisation, which I think is pretty much what you were talking about without the villages, but maybe they'll come in a bit. No, the villages not coming, sorry, no villages. See, I was focusing more on the villages, but you actually were talking about...
Yeah, that captures it, doesn't it? Someone dancing on your hand, it's.
It's a bit like the three-dimensional chess in Star Wars, isn't it? Whenever.
Erasmus, it's a free app.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
What's this?
Erasmus is an app. You can.
No, I've heard the word Erasmus before, and I wonder what it means.
I know it as a virtual reality app because I.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It's spelled Aura. Zma.
Aura
Zma. Yeah.
Aura SMA.
Yeah. That's the only way I know it.
And tell us about. Come a bit closer as well, Rachel, because I'm getting
I'm quite enjoying being quite distant.
I'm getting arms. So what is Erasmus?
So Erasmus, the way I've used Erasmus is actually in education situations where you can actually you create a piece of work that can only be seen, so on video work, it's video work that only can be seen if it is triggered by an image that you've already programmed it to trigger by. So you could use a ketchup bottle, a label on a ketchup bottle, and because you've pre-programmed it, when you use your phone, any kind of phone, and you've got the app on there, you'll hover it over the label, and it'll only be triggered by that label.
What will it
and
do?
it will show the video that you've created.
Oh, right.
So in an education setting, it's really useful with young people, for example. You can get kids to do reviews of books in a library, and the trigger is the front of the book, and then you get 7 kids going, we love this book because, or it can be used much, it can be used really embed it in a much more creative way.
Hang on a sec, Adrian, because we've got a new face to the table. So welcome to Talkaoke Pop-Up Talk Show. At the moment we're talking about things like augmented reality. Is the technology just there to serve the marketers, or is it actually useful for the artists? What would happen if artists designed their own technology? Where would that technology go if it was serving the arts rather than dragging the arts painfully forward into somewhere perhaps it doesn't want to go? So we've got Antoine, we've got Nico, we've got Pervin, and Aid and Rachel. My name's Mikey. What's your name?
Rebecca.
Rebecca, welcome. So that's where we are right now. I don't expect you to contribute right this second because you've only just arrived, and it probably doesn't make any sense. But help yourself to another martini. That's what they're there for. But yeah, we've just been hearing about some of these augmented reality technologies. But I don't know. I feel there's a sort of lukewarm response to them, that we're excited about the possibilities, but we don't necessarily have ideas ourselves.
Well, I think it's the best thing that I've seen in a long time, simply because, what Nico said about, you put on goggles and you go into another world, you shut the world out. Yeah. And the same with the earphones, everything, it's shutting the world out, but this is actually opening the world to new possibilities, isn't it? So.
The best use of it was Pokemon Go. I mean, Pokemon Go was a kind of game changer in that, in a sense that, in a sense that, and a use of mass technology in order to get people. I mean, putting a comic monster in your garden was brilliant, or in your hand. I mean, that was a fantastic attraction. What they cracked with Pokemon Go, the monsters that only lived on cards or on your DS, you could actually now put your phone around and it'd be in your garden, and you could throw your Pokeball and you could catch it. And brilliant idea. But obviously it's run out of steam now slightly, I guess. People running around, and also it got people moving, which is the great thing. People say digital don't move, so people want people going out together, so they were chasing things together. So I think that was a really neat idea of that technology. How I'm sure Nintendo will have something else in development using that tech now.
So I mean, so it sort of started, but it never really kind of got any. Rebecca.
So I work for a visual arts organisation, and we do exhibitions. We don't have our own gallery. It's Meadow Arts, and we have exhibitions in other people's venues every year. Right. And what I was interested in is the idea of, because our exhibitions are there for a short while and then they're gone again, is the idea of having an exhibition that you could see afterwards, so you could go back to that place and see what had been there before, created by the artists. Yeah. And I thought that augmented reality was the way to go. Yeah.
I mean, would you need to go back to the gallery, or could you just like have a space that would be the gallery? I don't know.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. Yeah.
So we've got. Hang on a sec, Rachel, because we've got a new face to table. Just tell us your name.
Rich.
Rich. We knew that. Rich, Rebecca, Antoine, Nico, Pervin, Aid, and Rachel. What were you saying?
Was it Snapchat or WhatsApp that released that exhibition that you had to go to, and you use Snapchat or WhatsApp,
right? And
you can only see those sculptures. It was released this morning. My kids showed it to me.
Really?
You can go. Yeah, I know. It was like Jeff Koons' giant sculptures in them. You did, the bubble balloon, the balloon dogs, And you could only see them if you were actually in situ. But if you saw them, so it was like a 3D version.
So you still had to go to the place.
You had to go to the place, but it was a 3D version of what we were talking about earlier. So you could move right around the sculpture and experience it, but it's not actually physically there.
What's kind of strange about that, isn't it? If I'm going there, but I can only experience it by looking through another digital device in order to experience it, what the hell's the point? It's like, why not just stick it there in reality, in three dimensions, rather than having to look at it through and pretend it's there through a device. So what is that kind of doing? And that's kind of interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's an interesting idea. I think it's an interesting idea, but you sort of
I mean, especially from you, Aid, I sort of feel. Come and have a seat. We're talking about technology. Is it there? Does it actually help the artist, aid the art, or is it just some kind of gimmick or some kind of new kaleidoscope with which to see old things, such as stories and stuff like that?
I was going to say the only obvious immediate rebuttal I would give to that is if it drags in a younger audience, then it's achieved a goal.
Okay, so it's like the Pied Piper of Hamelin. It brings the kids out.
From my point of view, I completely agree. I don't want to go. One of you, they completely agree.
So it would bring the kids along. We've got a new face to say. What's your name? Munch. I can call you Munch from now on. What is it?
Richard.
We got Rich. We got Rebecca. We got Antoine. We got Nico, Pervin, Adrian, or Aid, whichever you prefer. And Rachel, my name's Mikey. At the moment, we're talking about technology. Is it a bit like this, where this is Rick's latest visualization, where he's got the 155-inch TV? Well, it's just a new thing that we have to somehow embrace this technology. Maybe it brings the kids along and gets them excited. But is it actually advancing art practice? Yeah. Or is it? Is it? Yeah.
The last conversation, I've got baggage from that, but we were talking about the fact that the real world increasingly seems to be feeding the digital, and that if you accept there is a digital reality in the sense that social media, all of the interactions, so potentially, but if there is this space where all of this, so if you attempt to bridge those two, then if you introduce location-based digital art, then you are engaging just on that different level. It depends how invested you are in the digital realm.
Is it revealing something extra? I mean, in the case of Pokemon, maybe it is revealing some extra Pokemon monsters. Hello,
if it's impossible, I would say. That's one thing I would. So replication of existing artworks, I can see that. I've seen those dogs. I don't, but if it was doing something impossible, that I could see more of an argument for. Things you couldn't physically. So
that the technology is there to achieve the impossible in a way. New face of the table. I would just want to say to those who have come in later, any martinis which are sort of not like this one, for example. That's an available martini. So don't feel shy or embarrassed to actually. You sure you don't, Rich?
No, I'm being good.
Okay, we've got a new face of the table. What's her name?
Philippa.
What's it?
Philippa.
Philippa. So we've got Rebecca, we've got Rich, we've got Richard, we've got Rachel, Adrian, Pervin, Nico, Antoine, and Mikey. And at the moment we're talking about technology. We're talking about technology, and does it, if it does something new, that's what Rich is for.
Are you using technology to remember the names? Because I reckon that he's written them down, and then he tells you.
Well, I told you I'm a hologram. Hello, come in. I mean, where does technology end, and where does kind of like humanness begin? Is it even possible to say what is and isn't technology anymore?
Well, you could argue a pencil's technology, to be devil's advocate.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything that you fashion in its true definition to achieve something.
So let's call it digital rather than technology, because technology in and of itself is not a bad thing. That's technology.
Yeah. But
digital is an interesting level that we've now come to, isn't it, where we think we have a reality attached to it somehow. That doesn't interfere with our reality.
Okay, so you're
digital
saying that digital is interfering with our reality.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying we seem to have created this reality.
Okay, the digital reality. What do people think?
We quite often talk about digital art, and I think people mean stuff that's online, but actually all of our artists, they're using Photoshop, they're using design programs, they're using all sorts of things to make art. So where do you draw the line? I mean, I would say that most art is created in some way digitally. We're using computers, at least for research, when we're making art, even if you're doing a drawing with a pencil.
And even if you're making a stone sculpture, you're still probably writing 100 emails to actually get it made.
Yeah.
So I personally think the artist's main tool is actually the email. Because that's what you spend. Well, I don't know. It's sad, but I'm not supposed to be giving my point of view in the middle. But I spend so much time just writing fucking emails all the time. And I believe I'm not the only one, because people reply. So in a way that makes all art digital, because we're all writing emails to each other.
Well, I always say that because we at the moment are obviously chasing the digital coin, and it's a word that's dropped in, and for every meaning, not Bitcoin, meaning literally money, because digital is included in applications. Anybody involved in seeking funding in arts knows this. We're all going through it now. Yeah. And for us, where we are right now, it's completely a redundant term, because everything we do, I say, what do we do that's not digital?
Yeah.
Everything. As soon as we roll a camera, it's digital. As soon as we, everything we do is digital. So that's why we have deliberately, on occasion when we've been discussing this event, we've talked about technological rather than digital, because it's using technology to.
What about this question of the digital reality that Rachel sort of put out there? Do you see two separate realities?
Well, I think there is, and this as the thing which tends to be perceived as negative is because it's been commercialised, driven by commercial algorithms.
Okay, so that's more owned.
Yes, but I think that as long as people are creating avatars and idealised versions of themselves and piping information to other people, and it's being shared and consumed, then I think it's increasingly complex, but yes, there's a digital reality.
Okay. And which reality do we prefer?
This one.
Yeah, perfect, yeah.
I'm not a digital person at all.
Yeah.
Do I look digital? I'm a maker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I make puppets, and I make theatre and theatre design and sets, and I work with my hands all the time. Do you know what I mean? And I really love that. Do you know what I mean? I think they're the most beautiful tools in the world. Yeah. I know that they created some sort of technical robot that had the power to touch the top of your head and and it cost something like 30 million or something that it didn't destroy your brain or crack your skull, and we can do that now. We can go around the table, we give each other a massage, we can whisper in each other's ears, we can do these most beautiful things ourselves, and with our hands and with our minds and our bodies, and that I think should come first. I don't think that we have to go so crazy about all of these things.
You don't think a robot
it's
will
so
ever
beautiful.
Supersede humans in terms of massage?
I don't think they will, no. I hope not, anyway. Because I think it'll get strange and dirty.
Hang on a sec.
I just want to say, I think in the arts, that's what we do. We play with realities and we invite people to see the world differently. And digital is just another tool to do that. And by the way, my version of digital is that it's gone through some electronic interface. That's my version of digital, and I think that's what you're saying, Pervin, that we don't need that electronic interface, we can just be the human interface. Yeah. But in terms of realities, that's my world, is playing with realities, trying them on, inviting other people to try on different realities, and the more innovative and the more explorative we can be about that, the better. Yeah. So if digital does that, that's great. But if digital stops people trying on realities, then I think that's dead in the water.
Philippa, you've introduced this idea of play as well, which maybe is getting to some, because I guess it is supposed to be about art and stuff like that. So maybe play is a useful element to that. Maybe that's something that
it loses that play. It's kind of dead. It's just an end in itself, but it has to have that playful element, otherwise what's the point? There's no creativity to it.
Invention without play, or innovation.
Okay. Do you come and take a seat? There's still martinis available and seats. At the moment we're talking about reality. Is a digital reality a separate reality? Most people around the table are saying yes, it is, but it could. All of these realities, we can play with reality, and is that one of the essential things that the artist does? What's your name?
Simon.
Whoa! Oh, that was good until I tried to save it. But we've got tissues.
It's
I knew this. Yeah, this is the reality. This is the dirty, real reality in the digital world. Don't worry, it's designed to be beer-proof. That's not going to be the first. That's not going to be the first. Well, it's going to be the first. It's not going to be the last. There will be many more spillages on here as the night goes on. So at the moment, we're talking about this question of realities as demonstrated by the falling glass. Is it a different kind of reality? Are we playing with these realities? Is that what is the secret to digital technology, that it can be playful? We have got Rachel, we've got Richard, we've got Rich, we've got Rebecca and Philippa, Antoine, Nico, Pervin, Adrian, and my name's Mikey. But yeah, that's where I don't expect you to come in straight away because you've only just come and sat down. But that's really what we're talking about. I mean, Richard, have you got any views on this? What do you feel about reality? Did it used to be a friend of yours?
I'm very much in favour of reality.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And I feel the modern world is a distraction from reality.
Okay.
I had a conversation with my wife last night about our 17-year-old son, and we agreed we much better off growing up in the 70s than in this decade.
Yeah. What was good about the 70s?
It was so simple.
Yeah.
You could go outside and play.
Yeah.
Kids don't do that anymore.
Okay.
Every time they get something, I think they've lost something.
Yeah. Okay. So every time you get something, you lose something else. We're talking about, and you mentioned the word play as well. How important is this play idea that seems to be emerging and
boredom is important.
Yeah.
And one thing, talking specifically about children and play, that is lost is boredom. There's a constant. Yes, you're not allowed to be bored. Well, there's no need to be bored. Yeah. And creative thought. A lot of expression, a lot of working through issues, thinking time comes from boredom. Remove boredom, and you do frustrate cognitive development slightly.
Okay.
I can't Google and show you the evidence. Yeah. That's what I'm translating from that. That play, in this old sense. Once we get to the point where people play in a digital environment rather than consume, then we're in a more fertile area.
Okay. So. Play is more fertile than.
Well, I think when you play, you discover things. If you're being too conscious and too directed, then you're going down a straight linear line, and you're only going to find what you're looking for. Whereas when you play, you're going off in random directions.
I mean, just to sort of
that's where things start to click, and you make connections which you wouldn't necessarily have found otherwise.
I mean, just to join the dots between what different people are saying, do you think maybe the kind of contemporary digital world, you find what you're looking for too easily in a way, so you don't go in that kind of exploratory
probably because. The digital world as I know it, which I don't know much about it, you find it by searching, don't you? You type in what you're looking for, and then you search for it, and then things are presented to you according to what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But you also find things that you never thought you were looking for that are amazing as well. So there's all these connections that you would never have found before. And it is a bit like going to the library and just picking random books out. You know, you get to one thing and then it leads to something else.
So you think you can have this kind of like undirected exploratory play on the internet? It's not. I think
you can. I think we all worry about it, but it's also completely amazing as well. So.
Okay, Philippa, you're shaking your head.
I just think very little digital content is creative content. It's there to give us information or to have outcomes, predicted outcomes, but very little of it is open-ended, and I think that's what you're saying, Simon. Just have that openness of outcomes.
Minecraft, I think, is just one of the most incredible things. Absolutely amazing. Because I was just about to say to everybody that I kind of agree with you that if the game has already been created, are you playing it? Do you know what I mean? You're playing someone else's game rather than the game that you've created. But a good example of that is Minecraft, where, in fact, actually the game has been created, but you can play in any way you want within it. And I think that's incredibly exciting.
Okay, so it's that open-ended thing. So Rachel?
It's digital Lego. It's absolute genius. It's one of the best games that's ever been made, and I think if you've got kids, they will play Minecraft. And I agree with you about having a 17-year-old who plays online a lot, but Minecraft is an exception to that.
Minecraft is the exception to the digital homogeny and digital boredom we're talking about now, really. We've got a new face to say. What's your name?
Claire.
Claire? I'm not going to do that all the rest of the time. I'll do it later. All right, Okay, Claire, we've got Rebecca, we've got Philippa, we've got Antoine, we've got Nico, we've got Pervin, we've got Adrian, we've got Simon, Rachel and Richard and Rich. My name's Mikey, and I should say we've got as well Rick seeking to visualise some of these ideas as we go along, kind of like he's in the kind of digital realm, he's searching for some of these terms. And are you finding those things too easily, Rick, or is it?
Some of them are a bit up there.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Come on.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, that's where we're going. Is this digital realm actually helping us be creative, or is it stifling? Is it not boring enough in one sense? Is it not kind of open-ended enough? What's going on? And can we make it more interesting, more open-ended, more creative?
I think technology is boring when it's the form, not the content.
Yeah.
That's it. The bottom line. I love digital stuff, and the stuff that we find is most often crap, sometimes brilliant. But actually, it's when it's the form, not the content, that it's crap.
We have a great opportunity at the moment, and maybe we're not serving it properly, which is as soon as you see a young 2-year-old given an iPad, that technology is the most intuitive technology that's ever been formed. The touch, the interface, the whole thing. But what we've put on it isn't necessarily, unless you are diligent in curating what you allow your children to use, which is a stressful thing.
Should you be curating your iPad a bit more? Is that what you're saying?
No, mine's curated up the yin-yang. I'm just saying I don't want to bring particular judgment, but it's just that there are ways, but it requires a certain level of engagement, which can be an extra level of stress for parents.
Yeah. It's interesting, was it Steve Jobs that just said kids shouldn't have phones before they're 14? Yeah. So my partner supplied that in our house.
Right.
My kids are 7 and 10, but they're already asking the questions.
Right.
So if he said that, if that big guy up there said that, then...
Yeah. Does it give more authority to the idea of... Do you say to your kids, look, we would have given you phones, but Steve Jobs told us not to do it?
We say he said that because it's not about using the phone as a means of communication, it's about all the stuff out there. So an example, about 3 years ago, sex education came into my son's school, and very sweetly, he didn't know what sex meant, so he put it into Google, and my dad's awful wife was coming for dinner, and I thought I needed to look up the recipe for mint sauce, and I picked up my phone, I was like, fuck! Like, God! And I didn't want to seem in any way anything other than a great hostess with my dad's wife there. And I was just looking at all these tits and much more. And my 7-year-old son was in the room. So it was just a funny moment, but that's the point, isn't it? That's what Steve Jobs is saying.
Yeah, okay.
You see it on a tablet or in a street somewhere where a porn mag has gone down. That's where I saw it at that age.
Yeah.
Grant was saying previously, he's not here now, but that because you've made the decision that they're not going to have access to their own devices till they're 14, maybe there aren't enough precautions in place to prevent that happening. Whereas if you accept that they probably will, then you naturally set up parental things and stuff like that, which are really annoying to get around if you want something for yourself.
Okay, well that's another topic. I just want to point out that Rick's done another visualization. He's got the manual tool compared to the digital tool there. Yeah, okay. That little Doctor Who reference coming in there. Although I don't think it's ever been said that the Doctor Who's technology is digital technology. Where was that ever said? But anyway,
watching some of the things that we've seen today, I really loved the clip of the Japanese lady with her face going like that, which was really, really powerful. And I was thinking about my puppets, which are over here, and I was kind of thinking, wouldn't it be incredible to within nearly every show, I always have a moment where one of the puppets breaks down for some reason or another, and I thought, wouldn't it be incredible if the puppet looked up and its face went like that? It would be powerful. But then I thought, actually, that wouldn't work at all, because often when I come off stage and I'll go out into the audience, people will say things like, "That was amazing when that puppet cried." and I saw a tear come through its eye. And you said, well, I didn't have any tears. And they went, you did. You put water in there. You made a tear come down. And they had used their imagination in order to create that in their own mind. And the beauty of art, of literature, of puppetry, or visual, all of it, is the fact that it doesn't have to be shown to us or told to us. It actually has to inhabit our own brains. And so that initial idea that I saw, that wouldn't it be incredible to use that technology, then it just went, well, actually, no.
So the real virtual reality
I'm trying to find
is the reality of the imagination.
I'm trying to struggle to find a way to use this.
In bold, what you just said, the real virtual reality is the reality of the imagination. I think that should be in bold, in colour, everywhere.
Okay, well, it was Pervin's idea, really. But anyway...
No, I was just going to say that the Simon McBurney performance was just that, really. I mean, he was only using sound. It was him and himself on stage, a table and bottles of water, a microphone. But the whole reality that you were completely invested in was him and his performance, really, and the way he, used the soundscapes in order to portray that. But essentially, you've got one man on stage talking to nobody else, and so incredibly powerful.
So what's going on in our heads that it's powerful. What's happening
well, there we are. We're storytellers, or it was in the performance today. That's what humans do. We tell stories, and we just exercise our choice, which stories we believe, which collective stories we engage in together. I love the idea that from time immemorial we have always told stories to each other around a campfire and tried to make sense of the world around us through stories and through theatre, through drama. That's what we do. It's who we are.
Okay.
One of the best pieces I saw, and it was years ago now, must be about 8 to 10 years ago, of someone I thought really creatively using digital, as it were, there was a project, I think, called the Flicker Man. And a guy basically, it was a radio play essentially, virtually. But what he did was he told this play through a series of photographs on Flickr using other people's Flickr photographs.
Right.
So, and he just navigated you to different pages. So, and through the kind of narrative, he'd say, you go to a certain Flickr page which you can access a photograph, and you'd see a photograph of like an empty beach. And he'd be talking, and he'd be in that location on that beach, and then he would talk about. He'd cut to like a phone box and go, "I'm just behind that phone box there," and somebody following me, and someone's stalking me on Flickr. And so these photographs, they're actually documenting my life on Flickr. And it was a really, really interesting idea to be able to take a new, at the time, sort of social media platform, and create something out of it, create narrative out of it, actually utilise the tool as it is.
Disparate photos, they weren't connected, were they?
At all, and to turn it into a new piece of work. And I thought that was, and it's still, I think, one of the most interesting pieces I've seen. That did it really, really cleverly.
Okay, so there is a more imaginative way to deal with all this content.
I think Adrian's hit the nail on the head, because it's the idea that needs to come first. So it doesn't matter what tools you use. It can be paint, it can be tech, whatever. But the idea has to be the leading thing.
I got to service to Alistair now, because he said that right at the top of the day. Idea first.
But the inspiration can come either way. You either have the idea and you use technology, or the technology inspires the idea. It doesn't really matter, but the idea is vital.
Yeah. So the idea comes first, and people
It doesn't matter as long as the idea is there. It's like an ingredients. It's like a cake. It doesn't matter which way round you put the ingredients in, as long as it's there.
I think in that case you have the ideas through the play, and we're back to play again. And it is through playing with those
so
things.
you kind of discover an idea that you didn't realise you had.
Okay.
And I think the best digital platforms incorporate that ability to play, expand. I'm just thinking of my son, that chap's left, but you'll know his name.
Richard.
My son, who's just turned 18, is like a gamer. He is a gamer. He's such a committed gamer that he's built 2 computers in order to facilitate his gaming habit. But I just want to tell you about a game that he played, and I can't tell you what it's called, but it's a map of the sky. It uses real data to map the universe as we know it. And then it uses that basic data to then just extrapolate on what might be beyond the borders of space as we know it. he was telling me it has recently been found to be true that a certain area of the universe has now been mapped, and this game predicted it.
Come and take a seat. Come on. Sorry, Philippa. Come and take a seat. This is Talkaoke. This is a pop-up talk show. The moment it's kind of generative, a bit like this game, in that we don't know where we're going to go. But actually, what we're talking about now is not even really digital. We're talking about really the imagination more than anything, and about can digital reality sort of actually be a tool for the imagination to help us play and find and explore things that we wouldn't otherwise discover. And that's where we are right now. There's been a few different examples, which I won't go into right now. Are you off?
I'm just going to go for a vape.
Okay, well, give us a pre-vape final thought.
Technology.
Give us a final thought before...
He likes that digital technology.
Technology's great. It's here. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. And And what's your name, first of all?
Jamie.
Jamie.
I'm a digital artist and moving image and engagement artist and curator. So I'm working with Steam House at BCU in Birmingham, and they're developing a variety of digital technologies with partners. But when I went to the last lab they did, what I found was the best kind of VR experience was when you were walking into what felt like an artwork.
Right.
Rather than a recreation of 3D space and linear time.
So it was something that you couldn't possibly have in the real world situation.
Well, it's like looking at a painting or listening to music. There's like a different space. And if you try and recreate a kind of document real life as we think we see it, as we were shown in the film earlier on today, then it's going to not be as kind of engaging, really. So.
I mean, a lot of people have said this, that there's been a lot of, I guess, frustration with a kind of like digital banality that has been reported by various speakers on the table today. And I guess one of the forces of what we're talking about now is how to really escape that, and how, where does it actually become about play, about imagination, about...
That's what Ramon was saying about if you create something that would be otherwise impossible, or was it Philippa? It was one of you two. If you create something that would otherwise be impossible digitally, that's what's interesting about using it. Otherwise, what is the point?
Play point. The thing that no one's really addressed about the play point, which has come up, and it came up in one of the talks as well, the lack of play and how creative ideas through play, is there is technological play, because we're all talking about the way to play digitally is through technology, is the cost of being able to access the tools to play digitally, technologically. And part of what this is about is how, the fact that we all need to play, to experiment, you need backing. Because it's kind of the way film has always been.
It's become democratized.
Yes, but was always previously like technological play because it was expensive.
In the same way the music industry.
Hang this up.
I've got 2 of those.
What are you going to say?
Really strong.
They are strong.
Caffeine and martini. Jesus.
Anyway, we'll get you your own mic. What
sorry, I'm going to sleep in a minute. I can't remember what I said.
We were talking.
It was what you were saying about music industry.
I was saying that the film industry has become democratised in the same way as the music industry did in the 80s. I'm talking really fast now, aren't I? And I think that will happen with this technology, and I think it's already happening. Who was it that was saying? Alistair was saying that VR and AR technology is almost, you can get it in a cardboard box now. Well, 2 years ago it would cost your house to create that stuff. I can create augmented reality in a classroom with a free app, and the kids' minds are blown. The stuff is becoming cheaper, so we can play.
Okay, so
it's not just the direct access; it's the knowledge of what it can do and how it can do. Because you're all seem to be talking as digital artists. I'm a metal sculptor. I make things. I hammer things. I put things.
Do you write emails?
Yes.
I agree.
That's getting fairly close to my technological limit. But I'm intrigued by all this, and I'd love to work with digital artists alongside my work, because I think it'll go really well together. But I think the point is, it's still quite new. So there's quite a large part of the population who don't know what the capabilities are or how to do it in the first place. So in time, it'll filter through and be more accessible.
It's about the literacy, and it's about the action.
But I don't know. I don't need to know how a keyboard is made in order to play it.
Okay, but do you need to know stuff? Let's just spread this out. I'm going to set Simon, Rachel, let's spread this out to the... We've got this quieter side of the table, and we don't even know this person's name unless we were at the previous session. So what's your name?
Grant.
And with this, what does this side of the table think?
I think it's clear that the same way we're talking about films, and nowadays everybody does films and everybody does photo. So it used to be the privileges who were able, because of the price of technology, able to do that, or the artists because they had a vision or something. Nowadays everybody does that, and we have much more content created every day than in previous decades, etc. So we can imagine that in a near future.
Let me get a final thought. From you first. Oh, you're coming back? Okay, all right.
Yeah, he's with me. That's his quote. So we can imagine that in the future, maybe some of the technology used to create augmented reality, virtual reality, will become more accessible to everybody, maybe through different tools, maybe.
Does that democratization? What does that do to the quality of the work? Does it?
It's not good.
It makes both. It makes more shit and more good work.
Okay, so it's generally more. If you throw more shit at something, eventually you'll find something will stick. Exactly. So.
I think with the new technology, it will start with people who understand and are into the technologies, but aren't necessarily creative people. So you will start off with fairly boring, mundane stuff, and then as it dissipates through society, then people with no interest will pick it up and make shit, and people who are creative will pick it up and make really interesting stuff. So it takes time to filter through and build up to things which are useful.
Okay, I feel that you're on your way out, so let's get a final thought from you, though.
Final thoughts.
Yeah.
Are we still talking about the same thing?
No, hang on a sec. The conversation has progressed because I think we started off with digital technology. You were talking about the excitement of having a dancer on your hand, but then we sort of went into this period about a kind of digital skepticism where people felt that it was, a lot of it was dry and boring and technology-led rather than ideas-led. But then I think the real spur was the question of the imagination, where people suddenly were actually, and I think it was actually from your point about the Flickr story and what you were saying about play, actually this could be a tool to enhance the imagination. The imagination and ideas come first, and I think everyone around the table has agreed on that. Are you agreed? Yeah. So that's really where we are now. It's a bit more of an exciting sort of through the mundane out to the other side is, I think, really that this kind of question of literacy and understanding what you can do with it, what the possibilities are, and how that can instruct your imaginations. That's where we are now. We have moved on a little bit. But anyway, Adrian, a final thought?
Anything's possible.
Yeah. So about the possibility. I like a short thought, actually.
I have something to say about that because I'm not an artist. I'm an arts organisation. I'm here to represent an arts organisation, and I think we do have an important role to play in educating audiences and audience development. And could you throw any audience in front of what we just saw today? No, I don't think so. They have to be brought up.
Why do you say that?
Well, it's pretty extreme. Yeah. I loved it, but then I've just been steeped in artistic experiences, from a very early age.
It's also acknowledging, the context of these things that. Through video art, like Bill Viola and people like Wooster Group, Performance Group, they've been using technology for years, since the early 1970s, and using projections on screen. Richard Foreman, the Ontological Hysterical Theatre, Richard Sheck. It's not new. A lot of it. I mean, it's progressed into different things, and we're seeing it more often. But the creative ways of using it are varied and many, really. I suppose it does come down to what we were saying, the ideas and what you're using it for. I guess,
Responsibility. Those of us who lead organisations do have a responsibility to act as some sort of filter and some sort of education, some sort of some sort of progression to get people up to the capacity to take on something that's really, really, truly mind-blowingly different.
Can I just want to ask something? I'm going to come to you in a second, Rebecca, but there's this question about, everyone seems to be agreed on the ideas thing and the imagination. But does that make the technology then neutral? Does it enhance the ability of creating ideas, or does it suppress it? So it's neutral.
It's another tool. It's not. I suppose it's neutral from the perspective that ideas are the most important thing. Without ideas, then nothing's worth anything. But effectively, it's just another tool.
Yeah, just another tool. Let me, because you want to say something.
Yeah, well, I think we're all quite engaged with this, and we're interested in learning. But actually, people struggle with technology as well, and you can't assume that everybody understands it. For example, our organisation, we commission artists to make work. Yeah. Sometimes it needs the venue to switch on a projector and maybe a DVD player, and that. You're all laughing, but actually people struggle with that. And you're like, this is how it all works. You press this button and you press that button, but will it be switched on every day? Sometimes not. Yeah. So, even though we're all keen to get this going, and there's funding out there and all this stuff to get it going, actually people's capabilities on the ground level, they're really variable. And even when people want to see the work and show the work, they still struggle with the most basic bits of technology sometimes.
Okay. You can't get FM radio in parts of Wales, let alone digital. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of, the technology's somewhere over here. The reality sometimes is a little bit down there. Yeah. And it's like you can't get 4G or 3G. If you go to Library and you can't get a mobile phone signal. So if you're trying to do anything digital on the street or with a signal, that's going to be difficult. But I mean, so there are technical challenges as well.
But I mean, just as a consumer, as a viewer, as a participant, do you need to have that sense of of having been through all these stages from digital radio all the way through, or are these digital things accessible to people that can just walk in and see?
Totally accessible to the new generation, but as a rural arts organisation without a venue, which is what we are, you're relying on the volunteers of your partners, who are often old enough to be a gran, and like Rebecca says. Yeah. So I think the upcoming generation, the 7-year-olds, are way more savvy than the 57-year-olds. Yeah.
I think it's all individual, isn't it? It's based on, actually you will find people who are very scared of it, but you'll also find the odd granny who's embraced it fully and will tweet and Instagram, but they're few and far between, aren't they?
I also think you can't assume that all young people are good with tech as well. I worked at Hereford College of Arts until recently, and there are young people who really don't get computers very well, So we always make this massive assumption that everybody who's young understands it, but that's simply not true, because we all have different ways of learning.
Because they will use the tech that they need to use, so they are blinkered by what they need to use. Yeah, it's like we all live in a village, really, no matter what city we live in.
Okay, interesting.
I think that I think that a lot of artists as well, I think that it can be quite elitist as well. Do you know what I mean? That you feel separated from technology because you are working with the 3 dimensions. Do you know what I mean? That you're constantly doing that, and you're having to spend a lot of time doing things that you wouldn't necessarily want to do as an artist, like promote yourself on digital media and all this kind of stuff. And I thought it was really interesting today, because it felt like it's almost like there's a little bit of a divide, and it needs to be bridged, because you're talking about play and you're talking about creativity, and that's what we have in spades, because that's what we do all day long. That's what I do all day long. I wouldn't do anything else. I wouldn't want to sit in front of a computer screen, do you know what I mean? For more than 2 hours a day. I just wouldn't want to do that. It was not.
Okay, so you feel fortunate that you're not kind of harnessed to the digital. We've got you face to the table, and you're the winner of the last martini.
Yes! Just what I need. I was just going to down that.
How often does that happen? Anyway, what's your name?
I'm Sophie.
Sophie, we've got Rachel, we've got Simon, we've got Grant, we've got Pervin, we've got Nico, Antoine, Philippa, Rebecca and Claire. My name's Mikey. At the moment we're sort of talking about, and in a way we're sort of moving on now to this idea of a kind of digital divide, be it voluntary divide or ability-wise divides. Not everyone is as good working the box of tricks as each other. And does that actually mean that they can't access some of this, digitally based artwork? Does it mean that's what we're talking about?
Okay.
I mean, don't feel the need to answer right now because you've only just walked in. That's just a.
I have a comment comment on that, which is that I think that what that engenders is collaboration between artists of different forms, and we can all learn from each other. So you don't have to inherently understand how the technology works. You just need to have the creative conversation with the person who does in order to work together. Because if you're coming from where Pervin's coming from, which is something which is the opposite of technology in a way, because it's about magic that you can see, then what if you have a conversation with somebody who does something totally different? It doesn't mean we need to learn how to talk about it rather than how to do it.
But what about from the audience perspective as well? Is it the same idea that let's just go stereotype, and the slightly older person that doesn't get the technologies, if they're presented, or if they're volunteering in a digital artwork, is it also about having a conversation with somebody that does understand it?
Potentially, but I think maybe have we been through a moment of it? I don't know. I used to work in opera, and it went through a stage where every show had to have video design, and you got to a point where you thought, "Why? What's that all about?"
So it's a kind of fad.
And it became brave to not have video design. So maybe we need to it has to be an inherent part of the project. If it's not, then you don't need it. In the same way, if you don't need lighting because you're doing a show outside, you don't use a lighting designer. So it's about looking at the idea and working out what you need for it. You might need a puppet. You might need a really intricate 3D AI setup.
Which has basically summed up the conversation we've had for the last 45 minutes. So you didn't need to be there. Brian, you were going to say something. You haven't said anything.
No, I think what we were talking about audiences, I just think we can swap the word collaboration for experience and the surprise experience. I think the only way audience will engage is if we jump up on them with the element of surprise, because an audience is not going to engage with the back end unless they're a developer. They're not going to engage with the back end until we just say put these goggles on and experience it. And as soon as they put those, or whatever that may be in terms of, and then that experience will then lead to more intrigue, and then will lead to wanting to experience, like Philip was saying, more immersive thing. But we've got to be careful. We can't just throw 2 hours of complicity at them. We've got to think. Okay, and do we want to?
Is there a kind of gateway drug, so to speak, for digital that you can sort of start to?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. But the problem with that then is accessibility, but then that's getting better because it's getting cheaper.
I do think we should just clarify though, the complicity, that was a piece of theatre. That wasn't digital art, that was a piece of theatre. It was excellent theatre. That is my opinion. That's just my opinion. It's really great theatre, but it would have worked in a theatre without any tech. And the only reason the tech got involved was in transmission of it.
Right.
It was a piece of theatre in a black box studio.
Now that gets really interesting.
But that piece involved binaural audio, which is more than just transmitting the headphones. The binaural audio recreates the 3D environment around the user. So the way he was playing with it, he wouldn't have been able to do that without that technology. But then seriously, because the way he was, scratching the back of your head or things like that, it was much more precise than it would have been without it. But then
how important was the technology?
Exactly, it was serving his play, but he could have done the play without it. But it was clearly serving and bringing it to another level. So it was really interesting for that. It wasn't a demo of the technology. It was,
So Rachel, hang on a sec, because we've got a couple of people that are lingering by the door. Come in, come and sit down. Don't worry. Nothing. All that's going to happen.
No.
You're going to interview.
I'm being. Okay. You need a final thought, don't you? What were we talking about?
What we're talking about is.
I would argue, yes, it could have still been a theatre production, but but would it have been as good without the technology? And B, would people have sat in a room at a coffee pot for over 2 hours to watch that if they didn't have the experience that the creative technology allow people in order to become more immersive than watching theatre on a screen? Thank you, and good night.
Theatre with digital technology. It was not digital art. It was theatre using digital technology. But you can't claim theatre. You can't. It was theatre that used digital technology. It does matter. No, because it matters because you're using a label.
All right.
You're saying
Okay, one at a time. if you've got this microphone, then please talk into it. If you don't have the microphone, please listen to the person that does have the microphone. I'm going to go over just because Philippa's not said that much. I'm going to come to Sophie. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciated Alistair saying it's not virtual reality. Virtual reality is old. It's enhanced reality. I actually wrote that down because, and here we have a theatre production today that we sat through. It was enhanced reality, and I think that's just it incorporates much more of the possibilities of what digital can do, and the argument of where did theatre stop, where did digital start, we can't say where it stopped, where digital started, because it was an enhanced reality.
But I think that I don't know. I've chatted with the production team of that show, and Simon McBurney went to them and said, I believe this story needs these things to be told. So it was, again, that was a really great example of a pure collaboration, I would say, between digital art and theatre.
Yeah. So it's about this emergent idea in a way.
Yeah, I mean, he could have sat down in front of you and told you that story, but it was an astonishing experience doing it.
But it was theatre, and as much as theatre's always been enhanced by music or film or technology, it was still theatre at its heart. Theatre with a capital T.
Theatre with a capital T. What are you going to say?
That's the thing. It's not relevant because technology is just servicing theatre. So it's what it is. It's enhanced by the technology, but that's all it is because technology is just there for that. If you had films in the background, it would be the same.
Okay.
Can I say something on that? Yeah. I kind of disagree with you a little bit, just because I think that technology is an art form as well. You know, that these people are artists in themselves. They're artists in themselves. So it is a dialogue. It's not just a piece of theatre. It is actually a piece of theatre with all those incredibly intelligent, fantastic artistic technicians that were involved in that particular process.
What about this question of collaboration?
And it's a collaboration and dialogue which I'm interested in, because I don't know. I'm not a technical person. I'm just not. So I need to be able to work with those people with that artistic ability in order to enhance my work, but also enhance their work as well, so that it's a two-way process. Yeah. And somewhere in the middle we might find something different.
But it's not something. Okay.
It's your turn now, actually.
Sorry. It's still theatre.
It's back to it being a tool. And the better you operate your tool, the better artwork you can create through it. And the more tools you use, I think, the better artwork you can create through it.
If somebody comes out of that, and if an audience member comes out of that experience going, I saw this amazing film, then they've had that experience. It doesn't matter what they call it. Yes, we can go on and on about what we're calling it, but at the end of the day, our job is to inspire people and to make them want to engage with it again. And if it is virtual reality, AI enhanced.
Our job is to inspire people.
Yeah, big time.
Okay. All right. It's good to know. Sometimes, sometimes you don't know what you do. Yeah. Now we know. Philippa, final thought.
Rebecca.
Rebecca. Sorry. Rebecca, final thought.
Okay. I think we need to remember that technology works for us. We don't work for the technology.
Yeah. Okay. Do people feel that way, that technology works for us? Well, as I say, we run things don't run us.
It's interesting. I can't remember her name there. The last lady who presented before the film.
I wasn't there. I was sitting here waiting.
Natalie, what she was saying, and obviously she was talking about lots of digital marketing, I have to say. But even so, what she was saying was, there's a lack of ideas in that industry. Essentially, what they're looking to do is just, rather than thinking of how they can use the technology creatively, they're just thinking about how do they just get 10,000 more views or whatever they want to get, with what they're doing. So there's a dearth of ideas there from what she's been saying in that particular industry, which is fascinating because they're reacting to the stuff.
Why do you think there's a dearth of ideas?
Technology leading the way.
The tail's wagging the dog a little bit, isn't it? I suppose that's what happened.
Within our industry at the moment, I'm sure you guys have been around this all day. I'm really sorry I'm late. The Arts Council recognise a digital audience member in exactly the same way they recognise a real person who's walked into a village hall or a theatre or a street performance or whatever form of art it is. So.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, that's what they've told us, and I think that's okay. But it means that we therefore have a responsibility to that sense of digital marketing. Should we be making a digital response to every single piece of work that we make?
No.
We have to. Of course.
Okay. Are we being like forced or pushed or cajoled into this digital realm? Maybe in a way that's not.
Sometimes they are. Yeah. I think it's a natural evolution. You can't. It'd be foolish for the Arts Council to ignore new technology and creative use of technology. So it would be foolish to do that. Yet at the same time, again, going back a number of years, they kind of, when digital first started taking off, they did kind of swallow the digital handbook to life,
Yeah.
And at times they have done over the years, whether they've run funds called New Collaborations, whether you call it live art, performance art, theatre, whatever you want to call it, sometimes. What can happen with any kind of funding is you start, the funding and the types of funding can start being described in the kind of forms of work that people want to make, because they're forcing the collaborations to happen. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's also a thing, you have to acknowledge it does happen, because people then make things because the money's there for that particular fund. I mean, so that's what you're going to do.
So you've introduced the concept, Adrian, of the tail wagging the dog and the dog wagging the tail.
Sorry, Mike, I have to interrupt you.
Grab the mic.
Grab the mic.
That makes it look like it's...
Wise men. No, anyway.
There's two rules to Talkaoke: no fighting, no singing. So you've just broken the second.
That's me, I'm a rule breaker.
Yeah.
As he comes in to say, can you all please now, firstly go and collect any belongings you've left in the room across the hall, because they're tidying it up and they're querying people's stuff, and then please head downstairs for dinner, which is now, essentially.
Okay. Hang on a sec. Can I just go on a final thoughts from everyone, because I need a sense of closure on this. I can't just have everyone leave without getting the final thoughts of the.
I still think this is an amazing thing.
Is that your final thought? Thank you. Okay, let's get some final thoughts and go around the table. Can you make them quick?
You had my final thought.
Okay, final thoughts.
All technology is good. It's just the way you use it, whether it's useful or not.
Okay, Rachel, final thought.
Yeah, it's a tool. It's a tool.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Okay.
Let's collaborate and make amazing art with technology and live people and humans and design.
Claire?
I haven't articulated it.
No. What are you feeling then? If it's not a thought, it's the final feeling.
I'm on the outside, I think. Yeah.
You feel on the outside, okay. Initial and final thought?
I've not even been in here.
This is
my third attempt to even talk to you.
Well,
that's it, that's my final thought.
Guys, you need to get together. I want to say, don't forget intimacy, because what I will take away from this afternoon is that feeling of someone blowing in my ear who could have been a real person 2 centimetres away from my ear. So intimacy, I don't know, it's in there.
No, I love actually the idea that you could have the sensation of someone blowing in your ear when it was actually just sound in your headphones.
Okay. Final thought? Okay.
Whatever happens, I think it's exciting times to be around. It's cool new tech, new stuff. It's all exciting.
I hope that people who have that technology will come and play with people that don't have that technology.
We are.
Okay, that's a good place to end it. And speaking of, I just want to point out that Rick has been attempting to illustrate this, and maybe Rick could just quickly flick through. But let's have a round of applause for everyone, just to get that sense of closure. Go and get your food. Go and get your belongings. We'll be carrying this on later on in the drunken session after dinner, for as long as we can, and we'll talk about absolutely anything. It's kind of up to you. But thanks so far.